All right. It is my honor and privilege to introduce today for our school gardening series. We have Mr. David Atchison. If you can't tell, we're sitting in his music room. He is a teacher. How long have you been with USD 383?
Well, gosh, 25 years,
Wow.
and this is year 36.
Okay, 36 years of teaching. And he is an amazing, I mean, he has rocked the school garden world. So he doesn't like it when I oversell him. All right. And we have his assistant here today. So I'm going to let Dave also introduce our introductory speaker. And can you tell me your name? And
Hi, my name is Joshua. I will be introducing the Oliver Brown garden.
What do we have planted in the Oliver Brown garden, Josh?
We have raspberries, Brussels sprouts, strawberries, potatoes, tomatoes, peas, let's see, broccoli.
Do we have any green peppers?
Yeah, peppers. We've also got peppers. And
Let's see, do we have any corn planted yet? That's a trick question. We don't have it in yet, do we?
but I think we'll have corn. And we've also got sunflowers.
Sunflowers, good remembering. Can you show them those flowers next to you? Do you remember what we call those?
These are moss roses. Orange.
And they're pretty good in the heat. All right. Is there anything else you want to tell them about the garden, Josh?
Which do you want? Bad plant.
I want the
Probably
good, I
these.
want those.
All right. All right. Josh, thank you very much.
Josh,
Thanks,
so
dude.
good.
Rabbit. And his garden, even the school. If this is 5 stars, this 10 stars.
10 stars. Josh gave
Thank you.
Oliver Brown, the school garden club, 10-star rating. Okay, thank
So
you, Josh.
They can go right back there. All
10
right.
stars.
And do you want to go sit with Mom, or do you want to sit here while we keep talking? You decide.
I'll go in the other chair.
All right. Here we go.
All right. So I asked, I've had the pleasure of knowing you through probably all of our green team work that we've done over the years. So I think to give background for everybody, how did you get going? How did school gardening become such a passion for you and passing it on?
Well, I used to think school gardening was kind of an oxymoron, but it's not. I just had to change the way that I think about gardening, and that's come pretty easy. Now, Josh here is a pretty grown-up gardener. I started when I was about 3. And real quick story, my dad was quite a gardener, gardened till he was 93. Never got skin cancer because he wore a hat every day in the garden. And so I teach the kids the hat. I started when I was 3 because I had seen him bend over his onions. He did that late in the season to make the bulbs larger. So monkey see, monkey do. I thought that was a good idea. So I went and bent over all of Dad's onions about a week after he planted them. And that's when he decided I'd better have my own garden. And so I have been gardening for, oh my gosh, I got to do the math. I've been gardening for 60 to 63 years. My dad gardened for 90. So there might be a message in there. A good way to get some exercise. Back to you.
Yeah. So tell us
us about your school garden club and how you've gotten those going, because you technically have two different gardens that you work with schools.
I do. In the year 2000, I started work at Ogden Elementary. By the way, I have to do the Ogden thing when I do that. Our school, Ogden, made Bill Snyder's Rise look, gosh, I don't want to say anything disparaging, but Ogden's success was at least as big as Bill Snyder's worst to first in football. When I got to Ogden, I'm just going to say Ogden was a mess. And then we got a wonderful administrator who came in and knew what he was doing. And through that leadership, Ogden became a blue ribbon school. There are two kinds of blue ribbon schools, and Ogden's kind of blue ribbon school is where no subpopulation scores lower than the main population. And that just doesn't happen very often. Now, that circular story is to get back to the garden, because the way we did it was we extended the school day in both directions every day for years. I had school clubs in the morning, and garden club was one of the ways we extended the day at the end of the day. The garden is located about a quarter of a mile from Ogden School, and so we would gather all the kids, take them down to the garden, so they got that exercise, and then everything that we grew, we sent home with the kids. Ogden is a food desert. You have to drive 7 miles one way or 10 miles the other way to have a grocery store and to buy a salad. So we give everything we grow away. The teachers eat better. We raise all the ships when we give it all away. And I don't have to apologize for working a lot, and then I get to enjoy the best of what we have from the garden, but there's plenty to share. So started in Ogden, did that project for about 20 years, 23 maybe. And then I have been at Oliver Brown for the last 4 years, and our garden is still developing here. We're proud of what we've done. But one of our obstacles was when we started our garden, we found out we had 3 inches of wonderful black dirt on top of 3 feet of very good modeling clay. And that's pretty common when you build a new building, to make sure the site has a clay cap. And so we have been 4 years trying to amend that soil, but our garden is finally starting to look the way we want it to. All right, I started rambling, so you better bring me back.
So tell us about your 3 Ps and helping people get going with school gardens, no matter where they're at in the journey.
We're talking to a lot of educators, and they know about the 3 R's, and I had to learn that the 3 R's are relationship, relationship, relationship. And that's not a bad place to start for school gardens, but I tend to think about the 3 Ps. If my wife was here, she would laugh when I tell you the first one is planning. And you just can't plan too much. We were able to form, and the second is partnerships. But where is your garden going to be? Why do you want to have a garden? I like to say everybody's a gardener the 1st of May when it's beautiful out there. And then you find out who the real gardeners are in Kansas in August when it's 103 and the wind's blowing 30 miles an hour like a convection oven. That's when your garden needs you the most. And we don't want to be in the garden when it's like that. So watering becomes really important, and so does weed management late in the season. Partnerships. Of course, you need the backing of your school. Who's going to do this project if you suddenly transfer to another school. Then many districts have a process before you do anything. You have to gain approval from the people who do the maintenance and the groundskeeping. They must be your partners and you must have a friendly relationship with it. 60 years ago, almost, my dad said, please don't ever ask custodians to do something extra. They do not have the time to do it. You know, if you don't want to do it yourself, maybe it doesn't need to be done. So I always keep that in mind. I have a huge garden. I have the right tools. So if we were going to have another P, it would be an R, and I'd call it resources. I have a large rototiller because when you have an acre garden, you need a large rototiller. I have all of the tools that kids need. By the way, I usually have kids use adult tools. I think they are safer, and I teach them how to use them. With all the years we've been doing this, we've never put a Band-Aid on in the garden. I know I've had 1,000 kids at the Ogden Garden, and so I teach them and I keep an eye on them, and we're pretty good at keeping kids safe. That's another important thing. Planning, partnerships, and produce. I cannot stress enough. Give it all away. I used to get pretty upset if somebody came and took a watermelon. And then I started changing the way I think about that, especially during COVID. If they needed that watermelon and they came and got it, that was not a bad thing. I planted more watermelon. And when I planted more watermelon, I spent less time being mad about my kids aren't getting watermelon. So as long as you guys get to have watermelon, I don't mind if somebody needs that watermelon. I'm rambling again. So here we go.
So tell us how, I know you've talked about how partnerships and relationships are important. So how have you gone about establishing those relationships, and how would you suggest people think about their own communities and building those relationships to support their gardens?
Well, all of my teacher friends know how important having a good relationship with the parents of the kids you're teaching, how important that is. The first time there's difficulty is the wrong time to meet parents. Same thing with successes. If you've got somebody who's succeeding, you want to share that with parents. And so the reason I say that is that same communication becomes very important. Whether it's just scheduling and watching the weather, canceling when you need to, getting out the information that you're sending some produce home, so moms and dads have a little heads up. I sometimes fall short in the communication area, depend a lot on my kids to tell mom and dad what we're doing. But every once in a while, some communication is pretty important. So let's see. Joshua, what am I forgetting?
What about how you grow your food?
I like the way you're thinking, sir. I talked about a water source. Water can be very expensive when it comes to gardening. I don't really care for drip hoses because they are a lot of work and I don't feel like I get that much more out of drip hoses. So I prefer to do all of the watering. Gardeners learn how to water, learn to know how much. We sometimes talk about an inch a week, but I know some people in Western Kansas would have to probably add 2 inches a week. If you add that wind, if the wind blows for 3 days, you're going to need to water. And that's maybe the biggest thing. And then every time I go to the garden, I weed a little bit. sometimes when I go to the garden, I weed a whole lot. And my wife loves weeding. I love my wife. I like weeding, but my wife loves weeding. And so we have a good partnership that helps these gardens go. She used to just tolerate my gardens, and now she's right there, and it's not my garden anymore. It's the school's garden, and Jan loves to help. So figure out who you're going to depend on. A garden is usually a bigger project than one person can do, but it's often a really good idea to have somebody you can really depend on or lean on. Who are you going to go to when you have garden questions? That's something to think about before you plant that first seed.
Hey,
So
Rachel,
you have a lot, yes.
we have a couple questions in the chat. I don't know
Okay.
that you can see them. So
Nope, go ahead.
the first question is, how are the kids engaged? And can you describe that process of how you're engaging kids?
Well,
Take this one if it's okay, Josh. I remember the first time I watched a kid hold up her hands and they were covered with mud. And she said, "Mr. Atchison, what do I do about this?" And I tried not to laugh. And I said, "Well, we're going to rub our hands together and get most of it off, and we'll all wash up at the end." Our kids, many of them are not experiencing gardens. And so if they experience it here, they go home and they have a garden. We have just given away, no exaggeration, we have just given away 3,000 tomatoes to be planted in our students' gardens. And we do that with the generosity of Kaw Valley, who are located here in Manhattan, and they send plants all over the state. I did work with them, so I'm not very objective, but I think their plants are as good as anybody's. They make this donation possible. Hold those moss rows up again, Josh. So these are little plugs that would normally be transplanted into a larger plastic cell in preparation for selling to the public. Towards the end of the spring season, these have less value to Kaw Valley because they have already planted all they need. And the overage is what they donate to us. And of course, these are plants that would cost hundreds and hundreds of dollars. But we make them available through the generosity of Kaw Valley. So they're a very important partner.
And
Ogden Elementary and Ogden City are very important partners.
can you tell them about Garden Club and what you guys?
Sorry, I keep getting too far afield. Of course, the best help I get are from my enthusiastic gardeners. I always start my garden clubs small. It'd be a good idea to start your garden small too, and let it grow as the interest grows. Josh is a great weed puller. And if I tell him how to plant a plant, Josh, can you show him tough love on the plants?
um,
Don't worry about making a mess. We'll clean up the mess. Okay. All right. He is making sure that the roots are loosened up so they will grow out instead of staying all bunched together. And we call that tough love, don't we, Josh? Okay, then when we plant them, oftentimes one person will hold it straight up while the other pulls the dirt around. And then the teacher kind of checks to be sure everything looks good and gets watered in. Josh, how many people? Well, I'll take this one too.
to 10 people.
Okay. This spring, we've probably averaged about a dozen every Wednesday afternoon. But over the course of the year, we've probably had 45 different kids come in and out of Garden Club. 45 kids can plant a lot of plants, and 45 kids can do a lot of light weeding and help. So start small, and as the interest grows, then you'll be able to manage it because you'll get your routines in place. The kids who know how to do things will turn around and teach the other kids.
And Wednesdays, they end garden club every Wednesday afternoon with watermelon or food.
Oh, yes.
So that's if you feed them,
If
they
you
will come.
feed them, they will come. And we like to feed them things that they're going to meet in the garden. It doesn't always have to be in season in our garden. These days you can buy produce any time of the year. And so watermelons have just been coming into the groceries again. And I can get a lot of helpers with the promise of a watermelon snack. Popcorn. We grow our own popcorn here, and it's easier to grow than sweet corn. So snacks,
Snacks.
feed them.
Rachel?
Yes, ma'am.
Next question. Do you all do all the maintaining in the summer? Do clubs or summer programs help?
Yep. We do.
Bringing some good
We
questions.
do it Wednesday morning, like 8:30, not after school, about 4 to 5.
Josh is exactly right. And he remembers that it gets pretty hot in Kansas. In fact, I heard this morning from our weather people that we now have 25 extreme heat days. Less than 10 years ago, we only averaged 15. So we are seeing changes, and that's why getting everything in place, watering. By the way, a lot of our soils don't need a lot of amendment or fertilizers. At Ogden, we're in an old flood zone, and beneath our feet, we have about 10 feet of rich, beautiful dirt, probably the best in the world in the Kansas River Valley. And so we do not use fertilizer at Ogden. We haven't used fertilizer except for composted manure here at Oliver Brown. It's an expense that you often don't need.
Any other questions?
Feel free to unmute yourself if you have any questions for Dave or for Josh.
Ollie.
While
Okay.
everybody's thinking, I just want to thank you for joining us today. I have a background of performing, but I wasn't too sure about doing this. And so I also want to thank everybody who's involved. Please, if I can ever be of any help, and Josh was pretty helpful too, please contact us. We'd be happy to meet some of you, and someday we're going to figure out how to have everybody at the Ogden Garden. It's worth a trip to see. I think it changes the way people think about the community of Ogden. I think I see another question, but I can't read it.
What?
Oh, I was just sharing the garden guide that
Oh, yeah, great.
Kansas
Thank you.
Principals. Yep.
Okay, so like Mr. Atchison was saying, we next school year are looking forward to putting together an in-person school garden day in Ogden that you all can register and sign up for. And Dave's actually going to take everybody out in the garden. And really, we're going to have kind of like some hands-on in the garden time, as well as digging into some of the Kansas school garden activities, which we'll talk about now. Ashlyn, do you want me to start that, or would you like to start?
I just sent you a share request, so if you can share it, or if it's easier, I can share it, whichever way is easiest.
Go for it, Ashley.
I'll let you share it.
Okay, it won't, oh, yep, now it's gonna let me. All right, here we go. Here we go. Okay, so just some upcoming things that we wanted to be sure and share out with you all. We've got just a couple of days left if anyone wants to jump in on this awesome professional development that we've got coming up starting next Tuesday. You can still register through the week. This is a Water in Our Community professional development that we have that is looking at anything and everything related to water here in our communities. So that's coming right up. You can also get a graduate credit hour through Baker University if you're interested in that, and that's something that would be helpful to you. That is coming right up. And then we didn't want to forget to let you know, please join us coming up in November. I know that's a ways away, but don't forget, get it on your calendar. Coming up in November, we will be in person this year with our annual conference in Topeka, and that'll go November 3rd and 4th. I believe that's a Monday, Tuesday. We'll have keynote speakers, we'll have sessions, we'll have workshops, lots of good stuff there, panels. And then last but not least, as Laura was sharing in the chat, we've also got our Kansas Green Schools website. If you haven't checked that out, please do. And Rachel's going to talk a little bit about one of the investigations with that in a second. And then also our Kansas School Gardens Garden Gate site, which you can find through our Green Schools, but you can also get it through this direct link or that QR code. This has a plethora of information about school gardening, everything from if you're wanting to start a school garden to if you're wanting to revive one that already exists, everything from the first steps all the way through, oh my gosh, I have all this produce now, what do I do? So it's a step-by-step guide with lots of hands-on activities built in for kids to be able to be the drivers of the school garden and to be doing some awesome learning throughout the process as well. Rachel, I'll turn it back to you really quick about the Green Schools and if you want to let them know about our next upcoming VME as well.
So we have our the Green Schools investigations. There's 5 different ones, but the one that highlights school gardening is called the Learning Community Investigation, and it gets your students outdoors, looking at the diversity of your school grounds, which is pretty exciting to figure out if it's all just green grass. And how much diversity do we have in that versus if we have a lot of prairie and, so it's not only that aspect, but there's a big part of school gardens. And so I definitely recommend tying in the Kansas school garden curriculum and what Ashlyn was talking about with doing the learning community investigation, because it's kind of a 2-for-1 and really engaging for your students. And Ashlyn, I'll let you talk about the upcoming, in June. I thought you meant like next week.
Oh, no, June.
Okay, I'm like, I don't know. Okay, in June, I do know. In June, we're very excited because we have another outstanding teacher, just like Dave. Her name is Jenna Sims, and she is a lower elementary teacher at Wichita Collegiate. And she's going to be talking about the school garden the Kansas Green Schools program, and really how she's kind of started that at a very base level. And now her school in just a couple of years has gone to the highest level of recognition as a Green Globe school, and how that's kind of changed the way environmental education is being taught and implemented, and how that's really changed the culture of their school. So it's just a really good example of starting small, just like Dave was saying, and how you can take something small and turn it into something great like Ogden, or something like Dave with all your years of experience and the greatness that you've done. I really appreciate Dave for his passion in everything he does, whether it's music, the school gardens. He is always there with his whole heart, and you're such a great example as a teacher. So thank you.
You're too kind, Rachel.
I'm not at all, but thank you. All right, everybody, with that, thank you so much for joining. Thanks, you.
Thanks, Rachel. Thanks, Dave. Oh.
Thanks, everybody.
All right. Bye.
Bye.